And we are live. Welcome to another edition of DT Live. This one should be fun. So, you guys got me to switch to the GNOME desktop environment a few days ago. How am I getting along? I've only been using it 3 or 4 days. Another edition of DT Live. Give me a second here to mute the stream here. And of course, we'll give folks a second to get to the stream before we get into the heart of the matter, which everybody wants to know. What do I think of GNOME? Well, I don't know. My answer may surprise you. Actually, no. Those of you following the channel for some time probably won't be surprised by my answers. Let's check out the chat. By the way, you guys in the chat, give me a yay or a nay on the audio if the audio is good. Had a lot of people here early. Looks like C, the DOS boss, was here early, and so was Ryan Wolf and Abdullah. Hope all you guys are doing well. Nate Higgins said, GNOME sucks. It's more like agonomizing instead of agonizing. Okay. Total OS today stopped by for a second. He said, talk to my psychiatrist, Dr. Benny Bendova. Will do, Toss. Thanks for the recommendation. Alexander, GNOME is the most popular DE. It has its unique workflow. It has a very unique workflow. I'll give you that. The most popular desktop environment, is it? I don't know. Well, maybe in Linux, possibly because Ubuntu uses it. Obviously, we have to discount, the desktop environments in Windows and Mac, Chrome OS. Yeah, Faraday was also in the chat early. Had a lot to say. Lewis, how you doing? All right, quite a bit of chat already. I'm gonna have to skip ahead a little bit. Big Pod is here. How you doing, Big Pod? Yeah, audio's good. All right. Yeah, jokes aside, Compiz is still the coolest floating window manager in my opinion. Got my cup of coffee, guys. I needed some caffeine here. I actually have to go into work here in a little bit. Today is actually a day off for me, but I do, or as soon as this is over, I have to go in for about 3 or 4 hours. So, kind of sucks on my day off, but I might make a little overtime this week, so overtime's good. Yeah. So, Sven Carlson. Yo, what's up, DT? Enjoying GNOME? So far, so good. Zebedee Boss is in the chat. How you doing, Zeb? Hope you're doing well, sir. Let's see. Yeah, so we had a question. Tumbleweed or Void or Fedora or Buster? 5 seconds. What do you choose? Fedora. I mean, if I've only got 5 seconds to choose out of that list, yeah, I'm going with Fedora. All right. Yeah, GNOME is Google infested. Hey, DT, I switched to i3 this week because of you. Well, that's interesting because i3 is not one of my favorite window managers at all. But hey, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Like I always say, use what works for you. Don't use what works for me. Don't use the distros that I like just because I like them. Don't use the window managers I like or the programs I like just because I like them. But I'm glad you're getting along with i3. Light DM or nothing. I am using Light DM, even though I installed GNOME, which installs GDM. I already had Light DM on this machine and it was already enabled, with systemd and everything. So I was using Light DM. I didn't bother enabling GDM. No point. I mean, any login manager works. I'm sure GDM is fine. Yeah, John Wright says, awesome window manager at the moment. Good deal. I also pulled up the DistroTube IRC chat. Yeah, audio is good, says Virus. And yeah, Red Mink says hi. Any of you guys that want to hang out on the DistroTube IRC, it's hashtag DistroTube over on the Freenode network. And of course, that's a great way to chat about Linux after the stream, because there's usually a pretty good crowd that hangs out in the IRC channel, and they're very talkative. They'll help you out with your Linux problems. They may even help you out with your life problems. All right, so we got about 260 people here. I know it was kind of an impromptu stream. I only gave you guys, I don't know, an hour and a half or so heads up on this stream. I was waiting, make sure we had a little bit of a crowd, give everybody a chance to get here. So this is my GNOME 3 desktop. And is GNOME as bad as I initially thought? Well, in some ways it's much worse than I initially thought, but can I live in it? Absolutely. I tell you guys this all the time. You guys ask me to, wipe out whatever is on my main machine and live in this distro with that window manager or that desktop environment. I always tell you guys it doesn't matter. I'll be able to get work done in anything. Distros do not matter. I can install any distro in this machine and I will be just fine. Desktop environments, window managers don't matter. I can install any of them and live in it just fine because I'm the kind of person, I'm going to hack on the thing to make it fit me, right? You're not going to give me GNOME or Plasma and I'm just going to use them stock and, be happy with it. No. I'm going to make it fit my workflow. And that's exactly what I did here. So this is GNOME. I installed one extension, well, two extensions. So obviously I have the dash to panel at the bottom. It just doesn't really make sense because I'm on an Arch-based system here on my main production machine, Arco Linux, which if you're on Arch and you install GNOME in Arch, it is vanilla GNOME. It is stock, bare bones GNOME, which is horrid, right? It is one of the worst things you'll ever see. And that dash on the side is not shown all the time, which bugs the hell out of me. If you're going to have a dock or a panel, I want to see it. I want to be able to see it all the time without actually having to hit the super key or whatever activates that thing. So I knew immediately I was going to install either dash to dock for the permanent dock over here on the left hand side, or dash to panel so I could put a permanent panel on either the top or the bottom. I went with dash to panel. I put the panel at the bottom. And the panel doesn't matter too much for my workflow. Typically, I just use these kind of bars or panels in whatever window manager I use just to show me what windows I have open. And if I minimize a window, if I want to click it to unminimize it, I can. But typically, the panels don't serve much of a function for me. Basically, the biggest thing about having a panel or a dock or something is if it has a spot for a clock, that's nice. I like to be able to tell what time it is. And a sys tray. And a sys tray is not in this by default. This dash to panel thing did not, or at least vanilla GNOME didn't have a sys tray. So I also enabled a sys tray extension I found. By the way, where do you go to get these extensions? You go to extensions.gnome.org. And if I just do a quick search, so if I wanted dash to panel, which is the one I installed, you just click on it, and if you have a certain browser plugin installed, which I do, all I got to do is just slide this ticker, which is set to off initially, to on, and it installs this extension, and boom, you're done. So installing these extensions is very easy, and that's pretty much all I did. Was I got the dash to panel up and running. Okay, that's not all I did, but the workflow for GNOME involves either hitting the super key, or if you want to activate it with your mouse, getting this menu to come up. Do you see how slow that menu is? Now there's some animations going on. And of course I've got a lot going on my main production machine right now because I'm recording. The CPU is really being taxed while I'm recording and streaming. I'm doing all this with CPU encoding too for my Threadripper. But the Threadripper should handle anything I throw at it, so it shouldn't be a CPU problem. I got these annoying notifications coming up in GNOME. That's another thing I'm kind of disliking about GNOME, is it has notifications for practically everything. You can turn them off, but it wants to throw a notification at me like every 3 seconds about something, and I don't like that. I think notifications get in the way of your workflow. I don't need to know every time somebody messages me on Mastodon or sends me an email or what have you, because it interrupts your workflow, right? If I'm working on something, I don't want to be interrupted because somebody sent out a tweet about what they're having for dinner. So I typically just turn all that crap off. I need to go ahead and figure out how to turn all that crap off here in GNOME. But anyway, this animation menu here, I knew immediately I was not going to like this because I'm used to using things like dmenu and Rofi for command launchers, where I just hit a key combination, they come up immediately. No animation. I just start typing immediately, hit enter, boom, my programs launch. I can't do that in this. This is too slow. This is painfully slow. So what I did is I went ahead and set a key binding so I could get dmenu. So I've got dmenu. You don't see it because I'm not recording the monitor that appeared on, but let me open up something. I'm just going to open up this window so this monitor has focus. Here is dmenu. So this is just like dmenu and xmonad or DWM, or if I was using OpenBox or whatever and I needed a command launcher, I'm using dmenu. I'm not going to use the GNOME dash launcher thingy. It's horrible. It's horrible. It is woefully inadequate as a command launcher. It just is. So I'm using dmenu. I suggest you guys, if you're GNOME users, try out dmenu, try out Rofi, even things like ULauncher, Synapse. They're just going to work better than that default run launcher in GNOME. So I'm never even going to use this. I've already hotkeyed the super key to do something other than, well, I don't want to see that menu. By the way, I've already set hotkeys for super, enter, and all my tiling window managers, and even my floating window managers. I typically create key bindings, so super enter gets me a terminal. Super enter again, of course, would get me another terminal, and etc. Super shift C closes the windows with focus in all my window managers. I went ahead and did that here in GNOME. You guys can see why when you ask me to switch to a different desktop environment or window manager and I tell you it won't be a problem for me, this is why. Because I'm not going to use GNOME the way you guys use GNOME. Again, I'm going to make it fit me. GNOME is not going to change me. I'm going to change GNOME. So let me get back to the chat before the chat just gets out of control. I know we had a super chat. Let me get back. And thanks for the super chat there, Grayson. Appreciate that, sir. It says, since July 13th, Saturday, I once had a motherboard malfunction in my home server. I had blue vertical stripes during the boot process and my motherboard hang. My motherboard is the MSI X470 Gaming Plus. If you're asking me about your motherboard, I can't help you with that, Grayson. So I don't know what your motherboard malfunction is. Maybe the chat would have some idea. I don't know. Typically, when you ask questions about hardware-related issues, it's tough to answer unless you happen to have that particular hardware that somebody's asking about. Typically, hardware-related questions are better in large public forums where you're much more likely to have somebody that has an idea about it. See, I also installed DWM because of DT and Luke Smith. Yeah, DWM is great. I did really enjoy my time in DWM. Dennis is asking, is Budgie any good? Yeah, Budgie's running on that laptop behind me. The C-Matrix is running. If I quit C-Matrix, you'd see Ubuntu Budgie 1904. And I like it. I actually thought DT would begin to like GNOME after a while, because it's essentially a tiling window manager because it tiling workspaces. Yeah, and that's basically what I did. We'll get back to that in just a second. Let me catch up on some of the chat. What icon pack is that, DistroTube? This is one of the icon packs that Eric Dubois and the gang over at Arco Linux install on many of their distros. It is... Let me pull that up. Let's see. If I go to the tweaks, GNOME tweaks, and go to appearance, this is Sardi. Sardi Orb Calora. And there's a lot of these various Sardi packs. But Sardi is one of the icon sets that Eric Dubois and the Arco team, I think, create. It's pretty much in all their distros. They always install them. And it's got a large selection, a wide variety of these Sardi icon packs. And they look good. Since it was already here, I just went ahead and used it. The theme, by the way, the GTK theme is Arc Polo Dark. The wallpaper is just one of the standard wallpapers in the GNOME wallpaper pack that anybody could find this wallpaper. Whatever distro you're on, look for a package called GNOME-Backgrounds. It's typically what the package is, and that is your GNOME wallpaper pack. Back to the chat for a second. Let's see. Yeah. Al Cube says, no one is trolling around here. Yeah. I don't expect to have a lot of trolls here today since we're talking about GNOME. Yeah, GNOME lags on a Threadripper. I don't know if it's lag. I think they have that animation. That animation, even if I wasn't streaming, it's a little worse while I'm streaming right now, but it's a long animation, which it looks good. It looks neat when those icons come out of the bottom corner and just blow up on the screen. Looks kind of neat. I don't need something that looks neat. I need hit a key. My launcher is ready immediately. I can begin typing, type 2 letters, hit enter. My program is open. That's what I need. I don't need fancy animation. The animations do nothing for you. And somebody in the chat, I'm sure, will say, well, turn the animations off. Well, you can. You can go, I think, in the tweak tool, and there's a setting to turn the animations off, but it doesn't improve anything. It improves things just slightly. It improves, you no longer have the icons coming from the corner and slowly filling up the screen, but it still takes a while for that launcher to come up. It doesn't improve the speed. It's just you no longer get the fancy effect of it. Let's see. I missed some of the chat. I do apologize, guys. I know we've got a large crowd here today, about 360 of you guys. So I may not be able to keep up with the chat. I do apologize. Yeah, so you basically made GNOME like Budgie, what GNOME 3 should have been. Yeah, well, actually, I made GNOME 3 more like OpenBox. Or, yeah, like a combination of something like OpenBox and maybe a tiling window manager like i3. It's kind of what I've hacked it into. We'll get back into that in just a second. Is window tiling available in GNOME? No, it is not. Floating managers typically can't beat tiling window managers because that's not, you can't be floating and tiling at the same time. Now, GNOME does have some interesting features. So if I open up a terminal, and I won't click on the terminal icon, I'll actually use the key binding I set. Again, since I hacked this thing. You know what? I should turn on screen key so you guys can see it, but I'll just tell you guys. Well, actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and I'll use the launcher to launch screen key. Boy, that thing is still slow. I should have used dmenu. If I turn on screen key. So, super and arrow tiles your program to the left half of the monitor. Super and right, of course, goes to the right. Super up makes it full screen. Super down puts it back, you know, in the original size it was in, just floating around in the center of the screen. Again, super up, full screen. Super down, back to that size. Super left, super left, super right. So if I opened up a second monitor, you know, I could put it in that spot. So, I mean, it is very keyboard centric. It's not tiling though, because I have to manually force these windows into their spots. A true tiling window manager would have opened that very first terminal full screen without me having to then enter a second key binding to make it full screen. And then if I open a second one, it would automatically tile them one half, without me having to manually do each window. So it kind of looks like it's tiling, but it's not really. There's some extra steps involved where a true tiling window manager would have taken care of, you know, the window placements automatically without me having to force these windows into position. And of course, I've got my keyboard shortcuts to close windows with focus. Now, how did I get all these almost OpenBox-like or tiling window manager-like key bindings? Well, originally, before I switched to GNOME a couple of days ago, I had planned on hopping to BSPWM, a tiling window manager called BSPWM. And BSPWM is a very minimal window manager, and to do key bindings in BSPWM, you have to install a third-party program to handle your key bindings called SXHKD, the Simple X Hotkey Daemon. SXHKD. Here's the thing about that program that sets key bindings in BSPWM. SXHKD sets key bindings in whatever window manager you want. It wasn't built just for BSPWM. You can use it in every single window manager out there. Matter of fact, you can create your SXHKD RC file with all your key bindings you want and use it on every single window manager you use. That way you don't have to create a different key binding config file for every window manager you use. And initially that's what I was wanting to do, and I did that. And then I thought, well, you know what, I'm cheating a little bit. You guys really wanted to see me live in GNOME, so I deleted my simple X hotkey daemon RC file with all my key bindings, and I decided to do it the GNOME way. And GNOME, I will give it credit, does have a way to set key bindings, and it actually works pretty good. So if I open the launcher and go to settings and go to devices and go to keyboard, here are my keyboard shortcuts, and I added a few different things like Super Shift Q to quit out of my tiling window managers. That's the key binding I always use in all my tiling window managers, so I set that as the key binding to log out of GNOME. If I hit Super Shift Q right now, you know, it's going to ask me, do I actually want to do that? I don't. So, and OBS was warning me that I was about to do something bad. Sorry about the pause there, guys. I probably shouldn't have hit that key binding. Anyway, Super Shift C, you guys have seen, closes my windows. I also added, you know, all my standard tiling window manager kind of shortcuts. So Super Return opens the ST terminal. Yes, I'm still using ST as the terminal because GNOME terminal, I don't like it. I thought I was going to use it, but I used it for about 30 seconds and said, no, I'm going back to ST. Sorry, guys. I agreed to use GNOME, but I am not using some of the GNOME apps. I just can't do that, so. All right, and then, of course, I've got key bindings for D menu, so Super Shift Enter gets me D menu. Of course, it opened it on the wrong screen, so you guys didn't get to see it. Well, there's D menu. And let me escape. And I have shortcuts for like this D menu here for editing my config files. So if I wanted to edit, I don't know, my bash RC, I could open it and it automatically opens it in Vim. You guys have seen all my D menu scripts. I've got all that working in GNOME, right? I've got everything. So living in GNOME is not a shock for me. This will not be a big change, which is kind of why I told you guys that were just clamoring for me to live in GNOME for a month. I was like, you guys are not going to be that entertained or that impressed because this is typically what I do. I take a window manager and I make it fit me anyway. You guys that thought I was going to live in vanilla GNOME with that horrible dock that's hidden most of the time and with this slow launcher that is just completely inadequate. If you thought I was going to use, the GNOME terminal and gedit and, all of that, I'm not going to do that. So, back to the chat for a second. Yeah, do you play video games? I do not. Well, I mean, I play video games, but I'm not much of a gamer. Maybe once a month I'll open up Steam and play something for a few minutes. Yeah, so good afternoon, Stephen Anderson. How you doing? Yeah, DT, which terminal emulator do you recommend? Most of them are fine. GNOME terminal might be fine for you. I didn't like it because like the settings and preferences are a little clunky, changing the fonts and the colors and everything. I already have ST set up for me. Termite is also on my system. I have it configured. I could use Termite just fine. I think I have. Let me go back to the desktop. So let's see if I can launch Termite. So this is Termite. Termite works just fine. I've used it on and off for years. I have Xterm also on the system. URXVT is also here. All of them work fine. DT, I just moved to BSPWM today from GNOME. I am having some setup issues, but I am liking it so far. Yeah, BSPWM seems very minimal because there's not much to it. The config file for BSPWM is basically just a bash script. And then all your key bindings are not even handled by BSPWM. You have to install SXHKD and write a config file for that to set up all your key bindings. It's a bit of a strange kind of tiling window manager. You could do a tiling window hybrid if you made the desktop itself the tiling with the ability for window pop-outs. It says Hink. I mean, all tiling window managers have some floating capabilities, and some of the floating window managers have some tiling capabilities, but I've never seen a floating window manager that really tiled windows, meaning I just start opening windows and they get placed exactly in the right spot. Typically, you open a window and then with a second key binding, you tell the window where to go. So there's always that extra step in the floating window managers. Yeah, the YouTube chat is delayed, is 2 minutes delayed. Yeah, that's unusual if it's delayed that long. Typically, it's about 20 seconds, the delay, when I ask a question and can get a response. If it's 2 minutes, yeah, I don't know. YouTube may be having some problems today, but that would not be unusual. Yeah, Big Daddy's in the chat. How you doing, Rocco? And you guys, if you're not subscribed to Big Daddy Linux, definitely subscribe and check out Big Daddy Linux Live every Saturday night. I had to miss you guys last night, Rocco. I unfortunately had to work Saturday night. Seems to be kind of a regular thing with me here lately. It seems like Saturday nights, I've been scheduled to work a lot of them lately. Yeah, what OS are you running? If you're asking me, this is Arco Linux. This started life as Arco Linux, the Awesome Edition. Yeah, the delay isn't bad, says Tripcode. Okay. Yeah, the delay is usually about 20 seconds. So, the person that was saying it was 2 minutes, yeah, that would be unusually long. But it wouldn't shock me. You know, YouTube does do some squirrely things sometimes. Yeah, It Swirl says, I was on Biddle last night. Good for you. Random name, KDE plus i3 is a good compromise. Yeah, KDE, I'm not a fan. i3, I'm not a fan. But if I put them together, now I probably won't try that random name, but others may find that a useful combination. Now, what's the difference between systemd and sysv init? They're different init systems. They both work. No real differences as far as the end user. Now, if you're making, like init scripts, obviously there's some differences in the way they do things. But for typical end user, desktop, consumer Linux users, any init system works. Runit works. OpenRC works. Yeah, DT, I was at a pool party, so I had my spiel about Bodhi, then left. Okay. So you guys were doing Bodhi Linux this week. Well, I kind of like Bodhi. It kind of reminds me of OpenBox. You guys know I love OpenBox. Yeah, running Arco with i3 and OpenBox, but dual boot it. Arco, awesome. Yeah. Yeah, they do a great awesome window manager edition. I've actually installed Arco on my physical machines here. The laptops behind me, I got 2 laptops, and my work machine here. I've installed Arco Awesome a couple of different times. I've installed Arco BSPWM on one of my laptops, had it running for a couple of months. I installed Arco Xmonad on one of the laptops, had it running for a couple of months. And of course, Arco Qtile I tried out for a little bit. I was very excited when they decided to make a Qtile edition. Yeah, so back to GNOME. So, is there anything else I'm going to do to GNOME? Do I feel like I need to do anything else to GNOME other than what I've done? No, really. All I needed was the dash to panel, get dmenu back working as it should, Well, you guys, again, it's because I got 3 monitors. The dmenu typically opens on a monitor with focus, which is usually OBS right now on this far monitor. But as long as I got dmenu and my typical key bindings, super enter for a terminal and super shift C to close, super shift Q to quit out of the window manager, and then I've got the pseudo tiling that GNOME has built in, with the super and arrow keys to, get the windows to do the split tiling. I'm fine with this. This is not that big of a departure. Now, if you're a point and click user, yeah, GNOME would be strange. I'm not a point and click user, and I'm not going to use GNOME in that point and click fashion. So again, that's kind of my point when you guys asked me about Plasma a year and a half ago when I did a month in Plasma, and of course I've tried, standalone window managers. I think I've lived in about 8 of them, 8 different ones on the channel. I'm always going to make them work for what I do. I think you guys want to see me frustrated with something, and I'm never frustrated. I always make these things work. Now, so does that mean GNOME is good? No. GNOME is not a good desktop environment at all. It is way too heavy. So let me go ahead and open the terminal. We might as well fire up HTOP. Now, this is not going to be a good representation because obviously I'm live streaming. But should I be using 5 gigs right now? Over 5 gigs. I mean, I have the browser open. I have Firefox open. But I don't know. And OBS, uses some memory too. But that seems a little higher than typically when I stream. I don't think I usually get to 5 gigs. 4 gigs, maybe. And the CPU usage, of course, is going to be a little high because I'm live streaming with the CPU encoding. But things do seem a bit slower in GNOME. By the way, this is GNOME with Wayland. I've been logging in to the Wayland session instead of the X session. Because why not? This is kind of the default. This is typically what you would use with Fedora. Fedora is going to be GNOME on Wayland. Even, I think the Ubuntu's, at least the interim releases of Ubuntu, I think they're using GNOME on Wayland. Yeah, Tripcode is asking about Ranger. I don't think I have Ranger installed on here. Tripcode, I have a VIFM. My file manager here, VIFM, which works pretty good. I can find anything I want to find here, so it's basically kind of Vim-centric. So anyway, and I have Uberzug working on it, so I do have the previews. So it's my folder with all my wallpapers, and everything seems to work fine in GNOME. I was actually wondering if Uberzug and the image previews in VIFM would work fine in GNOME and Wayland, but seems to be working great. I don't see like any weird artifacts or anything with any of the image previews, so all of that looks good. Yeah, DT, what work do you actually do besides making videos and running HTOP? Well, let's see. I get this question asked every single live stream I do. Retail. So it's not a secret. I work in retail. And Cletus, I've seen your name around. You've seen enough of my stuff by now. You should know what I do. Yeah, Faraday, DT. I always wondered why so many distros ship GNOME as a default desktop environment. It probably has something to do with the fact that the giant Linux corporation Red Hat is kind of behind things like GNOME and Systemd and Flatpak. They're pushing all of that very heavily. So obviously Red Hat and Fedora and CentOS are all going to ship with that. And 15 years ago or whatever, Ubuntu, when Ubuntu came out, was shipping GNOME 2 as its default desktop environment. It's always shipped a desktop environment, at least based on GNOME. I mean, Unity was kind of based on GNOME, and now they're on GNOME 3. So that's the reason. That's by far the majority of your Linux desktop users are using GNOME. Yeah, DT, I'm not a fan of GNOME these days myself. What do you suppose Ubuntu and Fedora use? Why do you suppose they use it as their mainline desktop environment? Well, Fedora, again, Red Hat is behind the development of GNOME. That's why they use it. It's their desktop environment, and they're making it how they want to make it. I don't know why they make some of the choices they do. Why does Ubuntu use it? I don't think Ubuntu wanted to use it, but they have pretty much given up on the desktop as far as a way to make money. They thought Unity and Convergence and all that was the way to go. And I thought Unity was great. I think it's sad that Unity is going away because Unity is so much better than this. So much better. But when they dropped Unity, you know, you're already using a GTK desktop environment and all the GNOME apps. They were already using gedit and Rhythmbox and all that stuff. They were already using basically your default GNOME application suite. It just kind of made sense. That was an easy transition. Just go with GNOME after Unity. And then try to make it look and function kind of like Unity, which they did a pretty good job with that. All right. Come on, IRC2. Oh, you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that. I've got the IRC chat open, but I haven't actually shown it on screen. Yeah, so why hating i3? Who said anything about hating i3? I said it wasn't my favorite window manager. GNOME isn't my favorite window manager either. Am I hating on GNOME? I don't like the way i3 handles multi-monitors. I don't like the way that it doesn't show all your workspaces on the panel. i3 was kind of buggy for me too. It didn't like VirtualBox. Sometimes it didn't like full screen virtual machines. Other than that, I mean, it was okay. I lived in i3 for about a month, you know, as one of the window managers I hopped to. It wasn't bad. I didn't like the fact that it was more of a manual tiler than a dynamic tiler. I like dynamic tiling window managers where layouts are already pre-configured. I like the master and stack layout of DWM and Xmonad and Qtile. So, a different kind of workflow. i3 has a different kind of workflow than some of the other window managers that I've lived in for years, and I kind of prefer that workflow. Let's see. Yeah, those mini cores. Yeah, in HTOP. Yeah, so this Threadripper is the 12-core, 24-thread Threadripper. So you got the 24 threads going in HTOP. Yeah, so what is better about Awesome? You're asking what is better about Awesome Window Manager? It depends on what you're comparing it to. I'm assuming you're comparing it to GNOME, since that's the subject for today. Everything about Awesome Window Manager is better than GNOME. So Awesome Window Manager speed, obviously. It's not bloated. Everything is keyboard centric. So all the stuff I'm fighting with, you know, getting all my key bindings and everything. It's a true tiling window manager, which I prefer. But if you wanted to use like a menu system, it has a right click menu, kind of like OpenBox or Fluxbox. It's completely customizable. You can do anything you want to do with Awesome Window Manager. There's limits with what you can do with GNOME. GNOME is pretty locked down, right? It's not locked down like the Mac OS is locked down, but it's close. You know, of course, the Mac OS is, you know, that thing. They've got that thing locked down tighter than a bull's ass in fly season. GNOME is not that bad. You can customize it a little bit, but it's still window, you know, minimal window managers, your typical tiling window managers or your floating window managers like OpenBox and Fluxbox and JWM, they just have so much more customization to them because they were built for that. They were designed to do just a couple of things, mainly just manage your windows, manage the placement of the windows on the screen, and everything else is left to you to work out through config files. Through config files and installing whatever third-party programs you want to install to handle those things. Like, what do you want to install for a notification system? What do you want to install for a panel or a dock if they don't ship with one? What do you want to install for Systray? Or, you know, do you want a compositor? You know, all of that stuff is, of course, is built into a full desktop environment. GNOME, I don't have any options, you know. Compositing, yes, it uses a compositor. It's built-in compositor, but something like OpenBox or Xmonad, yeah, do I want to use a compositor? And if I do, I need to install one. And so the great thing about it is you get to pick and choose all the components yourself. All right, back to the chat. I know I missed a lot of the chat. Sorry, guys. Give me a second to see if I can find my place here. And somebody was asking, how long have I been using Linux? I've been living in Linux full-time on the desktop for about 12 years. I've used Linux before that, though. I was aware that Linux existed, you know, back in the late 90s. was using Linux on web servers. You know, I did some web design, and like I knew what Red Hat and Debian were, you know, probably 10 years before I started actually using Linux on my desktop machines. I never saw it as a desktop, like a viable desktop operating system until around 2008. All of a sudden it seemed like Ubuntu was a big deal. People were talking about it. People were making the switch, especially, was that around the Vista days? It seemed like a lot of people were actually giving Linux a shot on the desktop. And that was about the time, yeah, I made the switch because I was having some major problems with Windows. Had a machine taken over by ransomware, and rather than trying to fix the problem, I just wiped it out and I just installed Ubuntu at the time and just never looked back. Never had a machine with Windows since. Just quit Windows cold turkey, never went back. Never been a dual booter. Don't run anything in Wine. Don't run Windows in a VM. I just want no part of it anymore. So. Let's see. Yeah, Faraday, are there any ways to contribute to your channel, excluding donations? Well, other than donating money, no, I mean, YouTube is not really set up to... all I would say is thumbs up the video. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Other than that, you know, hang out in the chat and contribute with the chat, because that does make a difference on the channel. Also, if you are a regular viewer of the channel, comment on the videos. Comments are a big deal as far as the YouTube algorithms. More people commenting on the videos does help my videos come up better in the search results in YouTube. So it shows that there's some interest behind this stuff. So all that stuff does help. Yeah, DT, can you please do a video update on VIFM with the script to render images? Yeah, I guess I could. I didn't really do much with the video rendering script. That wasn't my script, by the way. I borrowed it from somebody. Actually, somebody posted it on one of my VIFM videos. They posted that script like in a comment. And I just copied it and used it. But yeah, maybe that might make a future video. I should revisit VIFM a little bit on camera one day, because I haven't talked about it much. I mean, that was when I opened up VIFM a minute ago. That was probably the first time I've opened VIFM on camera in a while in one of my videos. Man, we get so many new subscribers every month too. Some of you guys had probably never even seen VIFM before I opened it a minute ago. I probably should come back to it at some point. Yeah, I had gaming issues on Xmonad and Awesome. That was Sunbro. Gaming issues could be a problem. I can tell you right now, those of you that use DWM, Steam could be an issue in DWM, because certain games, when they go full screen, they don't really full screen right. Don't be surprised if you have some issues with DWM. But everything else I've tried, Steam and full screen gaming on, Xmonad, Awesome, i3, Qtile, all of that seemed to work for me. I didn't have any issues, but I'm not sure what Sunbro, what his issues were. I don't know if it was a performance issue or... Faraday, AMD or Intel? As far as processors, either would be fine. I'm using AMD, the Threadripper. Actually, I have AMD on all the devices I have. These days, with all the Intel security flaws, I'm not saying that you should make a decision based on that, but I know it's a good time to own stock in AMD right now, because that company is just blowing up thanks to Intel kind of wetting the bed a little bit. Yeah, DWM equals the grand champion. Yeah, DWM. I really like that window manager. I wouldn't mind going back to it and actually living in it, you know, long term. It was that good. Yeah, and of course Leon is asking, have I played with the Sway window manager? I have not. Again, it's an i3 clone. I didn't care for i3, so Sway is basically just i3 rewritten for Wayland. Wayland is not really ready for prime time either. So I'm not sure what you guys, again, I'm not sure what you guys would expect to get out of seeing me use a window manager that I honestly wouldn't care for that much. I mean, I'd live in it just like I'm living in GNOME, but I'm not exactly sure what feedback you would want from me on that. Other than, you know, this is basically i3, your i3 config hopefully works in Sway. Oh, and it uses Wayland, and Wayland is horrible. Especially if you have an NVIDIA card, Wayland is not usable. So I don't have an NVIDIA card on this machine, so I could actually install Sway and use it. If I had an NVIDIA card and wanted to use the NVIDIA proprietary drivers, Sway wouldn't even be an option. Yeah, DT, do you still use an internal optical drive? And if so, which brand and model? I do not have an internal optical drive. I don't have one on this machine. I didn't have one in the last machine. I have a USB DVD drive. I'll plug it in when I need it. It's rare, though, that I ever need it. So I'm kind of glad I don't have the an optical drive taking up one of the slots in my machine. This machine has 2 optical drive bays, but one of them is occupied by a 6-bay IC dock that I have a bunch of 256 gig SSDs in. For distro hopping, you know, if I want to, you know, install a distro on physical hardware and test it out without partitioning my main drive, you know, I've got these extra drives and this IC dock that I can install whatever I want. And I've got some stuff installed on there. Older stuff I haven't wiped out. Like I think I still have Fedora 29 on one of the drives in there. I've got Present Arms, his PC Linux OS, the Trinity edition, on one of the drives. Sabian is installed on one of the drives. Yeah, so Darsha, I hope I pronounced your name right. Qtile, i3, awesome, or others? What is it that you prefer the most? So you guys always ask me, what's your favorite distro? What's your favorite desktop environment? What's your favorite window manager? What's your favorite terminal emulator? They all work. As we've mentioned a few times, I can make anything work. As far as, you know, like, if I wasn't doing this channel and testing stuff out, what would I just live in? I don't know. Even in real life, I hop. I'll use something for 6 months and then move to something else. So, you know, initially when I moved to Linux, GNOME 2 was what was installed on that version of Ubuntu that I first tried out all them years ago. I hated GNOME 2. Within a couple of months, I was on OpenBox. I found OpenBox and loved it. After a few months on OpenBox, I found Xmonad and installed it and loved it. And then, you know what? After a few months of Xmonad, I missed OpenBox, and I went back to OpenBox. And then I found Awesome Window Manager and installed Awesome Window Manager, lived in it a few months. And then, you know what? I kind of miss Xmonad, so I went back to Xmonad. I mean, they all work, you know. There's no best. It's kind of like, what's the best car? Can you guys in the chat, can you guys tell me what the best car out there is? With no other information given, what's the best car? Or, what's the best food? Yeah. It's a question no one really can answer. You can answer it for yourself, but I can't answer the question for you, if that makes sense. I can't tell you what's your favorite window manager, what's the best window manager, or what's the best Linux distro for you. You just figure that out on your own, and then when you find something you like, use it. Use the hell out of it, and don't let people troll you about using it. If you love GNOME, man, use it. Use it with pride. Donate to the project, become a GNOME contributor, buy a GNOME t-shirt and a hat, and rock it. You know, don't be one of these people that get memed into using Arch with i3. You know, be your own man. Yeah, Peter. Yeah, an optical drive, the nightmare. Too slow, too much noise, no thanks. Rip it and keep it on a SSD. Yeah, like I said, I've got a USB DVD drive, but had it for years, and I almost never have a need to plug the thing in. I can't remember the last time I needed that DVD drive for anything. I've got it though, just in case. Well, and somebody, I guess, I mentioned the car, and I've got a bunch of car stuff. Okay. So, the 1995 Toyota Camry. I actually do know that car. That was a good car. VM Golf GTI. Yeah, my 1977 Corvette. Wow. And the Tesla. Come on now. The Tesla. Yeah. I know one of my fondest memories was my very first car that I had bought for $300. It was a 1976 Monte Carlo. Banana yellow was the color. It was awesome. The key point is not the best one, but which one would allow you the fastest workflow? They're all the same, Fareed. As far, I mean, you asked about those tiling window managers. The workflow is very similar in all of them. The only difference is whether they're a manual tiler or a dynamic tiler. Google the difference if you're not sure what I mean by that, or view the Arch wiki page on tiling window managers. They'll explain the difference, but they're either a tiling or a manual tiling window manager or a dynamic tiling window manager. And then the way they handle multi-monitors. Those two things are really the only thing that differentiate all these tiling window managers. That, and when you get into the config file, what programming language are they written in? But other than that, they're all. I could live in any of them and be fine and get all the work done in the same time and fashion. None of them would cause me any headaches. DT, have you heard of CWM? CWM, I do not know what that is. And I missed some of the chat here. Let's see. Zib, 100% agree, DT. Peppermint 10 for the win. Peppermint is not bad. I haven't done really anything with peppermint in a while, actually, on the channel. But I did like it the last time I looked at it, which was probably over a year ago. I like that it's light and fast, but it's very pretty, very customizable. I remember, isn't Peppermint the one that had like 100 wallpapers installed by default, which I love. And it was good wallpapers. The theming and everything, you know, it made XFCE/LXDE look good, which can be a challenge. I will admit, I don't mind XFCE, but it's not the prettiest desktop environment. If aesthetics is your thing, it can be a challenge. Yeah, using CDs are dead cheap. Rip them with a USB DVD drive to get access to the uncompressed audio files. Yeah, save everything as FLAC, you know. Don't save it as MP3. MP3 is pretty garbage quality if you're really wanting to rip all your music CDs. Yeah, Peppermint comes with around 20 wallpapers. Oh, I thought it was more than that. But I do remember it had a great wallpaper pack the last time I checked it out. Yeah, if you want to test i3, try Arco i3 or Manjaro i3. Good suggestions. Manjaro i3 I've installed a few times, actually. Manjaro i3 is running on one of my laptops. It's running on the Toshiba Satellite. Yeah, I don't do the Archway install anymore. I became too lazy. Well, you don't have to install Arch the Archway. Installing Arch the Archway is good. Like, I don't install Arch the Archway that often. I mean, I've done it a few times on bare metal. It depends on what I want to do. Like, if I want a ultra minimal installation with exactly what I want, and sometimes I do want that, then I always go the archway. But sometimes I just want something quick and dirty. I know I'm not going to live in it more than a couple months anyway. There's no reason for me not to install Manjaro or Arco or whatever. Now, if I'm taking the time to install Arch, I always install Arch proper, the archway. If I don't want to go through the command line install, I just don't even bother installing Arch. I'll just, I'll go grab the Manjaro ISO. Back to the IRC chat for a second. Do any of the tiling window managers do better with ultra-wide monitors than the others? I don't have an ultra-wide monitor, but I would think they all would handle ultra-wides just fine. Matter of fact, ultra-wide monitors with a tiling window manager would be amazing because you have more screen real estate and you could do so much more with your tiling layouts because you have more screen to work with. Like on my screen here, if I go back, and then of course GNOME is not a tiling window manager, but we're going to pretend like it is for a second. So if I open 2 windows in a tiling window manager, really that's about all I'm getting side by side. If I tried to put a third one in there and tried to divide it into 3 columns, even on a 1920 by 1080 screen, this is a 24-inch monitor, it would be a little tight. But if you have an ultra wide, having a 3-columned layout would work just fine. And depending on how ultra wide, you could even have like a 3-column layout where you have 1 big window in the center and then 2 smaller columns on each side. I mean, you could get creative. But I just have standard monitors, standard 1920 resolution monitors. Appreciate the super chat there. So, Jenny XYZ, thanks for the quality content. Keep it up. Thanks. Yeah, tiling window managers indeed work fine on ultra wide. Yeah, I would think they would probably feel right at home on an ultra wide monitor. Rather than a floating window manager, I think tiling window managers are just tailor-made to an ultra wide monitor. Even though I've never had one, I would love to have one. Anyone using Atom as their default text editor? Atom is a very popular text editor. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are using it as their default text editor. Even in this chat. I mean, we have still over 300 people hanging out in the chat right now. So, yeah, Atom is basically just a free and open source clone of Sublime, which is another very popular text editor. So, I'm sure there's plenty of Atom users. As a matter of fact, Atom, I think, is the default text editor on a lot of the Arco editions. I know it's installed on a lot of them if you don't take the time to get rid of some of the bloat that comes pre-installed on Arco. Yeah, and of course, people in the chat, yeah, Atom is great. I use Atom all the time. And of course, trip code, use Vim. I would agree with that, but not everybody wants Vim. But I would agree. If you're going to take the time to learn something new, Vim is probably where you want to be at. Unipixel, I think Sublime works better than Atom. It probably does. Atom is a Electron app after all, but Sublime is proprietary software, if that means something to you. Sokar, I went nuts and now I use VS Code. Yeah, that's nuts right there. VS Codium, says Morality. Yeah, VS Codium is VS Code with all the Microsoft tracking stuff ripped out of it. So that would probably be the safer way to go. Yeah, Emacs is the way to go, says Androth. Yeah, maybe one day. I'll give Emacs a try. Not anytime soon, though. DT, have you looked into Endeavor OS? No, I haven't. I will, though. I mean, I know it's the old Antergos guys, the fork of one of the forks of Antergos. There'll probably be several springing up. But I'll check it out. Hopefully it's better than Antergos. I never liked Antergos. One of my least favorite distros. as far as frustrating, more than half of the times I tried to install Antergos, it didn't work. And I had tried to install Antergos many, many, many times over the years. So that Cinchi installer, I hope Endeavor OS is using a better installer than the Cinchi installer. Because that thing was buggy and broken. Yeah, Tripcode, how long is this live stream? I might do one later. I don't know. How long have I been going? I've been live streaming for about an hour. I don't know, maybe another 15 minutes, maybe another 30 minutes. But don't worry about me, Tripcode. When you get ready to stream, start your stream and I'll send everybody your way. So don't feel like you're going to step on top of me. As soon as I get the notification, I'll send all these folks your way. And then I might hang out a bit too. Again, I didn't actually plan this live stream. I never schedule anything, because I often don't know what I'm doing. It's hard for me to commit to a set schedule. Although you guys got about an hour and a half heads up on this stream. I sent a notification, I think, about an hour and 20 minutes before I started streaming. That was the longest notification I've given for a live stream in a long time. Typically, you guys get like 10 minutes. I'll send out a notification 10 minutes before I hit start streaming. Yeah, so Farron says, currently Endeavor uses Calamares. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, Antergos would just break randomly after updating. I mean, that could happen with any distro. So I won't comment about distros that break after an update, because I have had many of them do that. But if I can't get your distro installed, something's wrong. If your installer is broken, something is horribly wrong. Yeah, Sunbro, you can convert Arco to Arch. Yeah, any Arch-based distro practically. You just change the repositories, make sure that you're pointing to all the Arch repositories, and Arco, I think they include just a couple of their own repositories, so you can pull down like the scripts, for some of their builds, but it's essentially Arch. Antergos was essentially Arch too. Antergos, now that it's dead, if we're on Antergos, it has since just become plain Arch. Manjaro is essentially Arch. Now, they hold packages back for a couple of weeks, but you could probably convert Manjaro back to plain Arch. Most Gentoo-based distros, if you want to take the time to, you could convert to Gentoo. It would be tricky. Typically, if you wanted to be on Arch or Gentoo or something, instead of taking a distro that's based on them and trying to make them back into what they were based on, just install mainline Arch. It would probably be quicker and a lot less of a headache. And you're not going to break anything, right? Where, trying to convert something like Sabian, for example, back into Gentoo. Yeah, you can do it, but it would be time consuming and you might break something. Why not just take the couple hours or whatever to actually install Gentoo? Well, depending on your equipment. Yeah, do you like DWM after all? Yeah, DWM is fantastic. I've mentioned that several times. Check out my videos on DWM. I was very happy with DWM. And you can even transform Ubuntu to Arch. Well, I wouldn't do something that crazy. I know people do weird things, like I'm going to take the CentOS repos and, use them in Debian, or, don't do anything crazy like that. Not on a real installation. Yeah, Zeb, a couple hours to install Gentoo. Ha ha ha, dream on. How long did it take you, Zeb? Zeb, you've got good equipment too. I bet you got it done a lot quicker than EB and Ben the other day. I watched some of EB and Ben's Gentoo installation. Those guys took 9 hours. 9 hours to install Gentoo. Now, admittedly, EB took a lot of smoke breaks. He was also grilling or barbecuing something in the backyard. He would get up occasionally to go turn the meat over or whatever. And then Ben, while he was trying to talk EB through the installation, he was doing something on one of his old MacBooks. I don't know, maybe he was installing Linux from scratch or something. But those guys took forever to get through that install. Because I called them early, like in the first hour. I went to work. I worked my 8-hour shift and came home. I came back. They were still installing Gentoo. I guess we could have done it in 6 hours. So, Zeb, you could have done it in 6 hours knowing now what you know. Yeah. We had problems with the 2nd gen Threadripper and the 2080 Ti. Okay. Yeah, DT, I think the reason it takes so long is the laziness by using gen kernel rather than doing a proper kernel config with all the fat removed. It could be. Obviously, compiling the big kernel takes longer. But if you don't know exactly what you're doing, picking all the various kernel components, it may save time, it may not. For me, though, I don't know. I kind of like just going with the big kernel. But Gentoo's not my thing, though. I'm not the kind of user that Gentoo is designed for, like on Arch. Arch, of course, uses the big Linux kernel. You know, everything's in it. Of course, that's one of the great things why Arch basically just works typically with all your hardware and everything. Because everything's in the kernel. So, you don't want to, have this stripped down kernel. You didn't pick one of the components you needed, and then later have to go and recompile the kernel again. Then that's not saving you any time if you end up with that. But if you already know exactly what you need, obviously. But that wouldn't apply to me. Probably wouldn't have applied to Zib either. Yeah, for a benchmark, my kernel compiles in 3 minutes. Not bad, morality. You've got a beast of a machine then. Is that the big kernel? I'm assuming that's the big kernel in 3 minutes. Yeah, Peter. DT, you ought to install Gentoo with that Threadripper CPU. It's a crime not to. And play Doom 2016 sometime. Okay, well, I really haven't bought any Windows games and played them using Proton. Kind of worried about doing that. Because what if they don't work right on my Linux machine? I don't have a Windows installation anywhere to game on. I don't have a copy of Windows, and I wouldn't put Windows on this machine. I don't want to buy a game unless it has a native Linux client. That's just me, though. Yeah, after using Linux for just over 7 years, I just want something I can install and set up easily without too much fuss and muss. Yep. Perfectly understandable. That's Tennessee Frank there. Yeah, Zip, I guess Serge and Adrian could do it in 4 hours, but they were telling me the instructions, and this was for YouTube. Yeah, everything takes longer when you record it. Absolutely. When I recorded that Gentoo installation, I did in a VM. Like total time, not total record time. You guys didn't, but it took me a little over 5 hours to do that installation. Now, a lot of that was me talking through the installation and recording and everything. I probably took twice as long to do that installation than what it really takes. Same thing with my Arch installations. When I do them on video, of course, I'm trying to explain things. Rather than if I'm doing it in real life, I'm just putting in a command, hit enter, putting in the command, hit enter, like a base Arch install probably shouldn't take me 20 minutes. But if I'm doing it on a live stream, it may take an hour or longer because talking. So. Faraday says, I always wondered why use Gentoo if there's Linux from scratch. Well, Linux from scratch is not meant to be a distro you live on. Linux from scratch does not have a package manager. you would find it very, very difficult to actually use Linux from scratch, like as your daily driver. It's really not meant for that, and no one does it. I mean, people try it, but you can't really do that. Or Gentoo is a proper Linux distribution. It has a package manager and repos, and they're completely different animals. Linux from scratch is really more of an educational tool. Linux from scratch essentially is a manual that you go through to learn how to Linux, basically. Yeah, Cletus, Doom 2016 is native. They have a native Linux client? Oh, I wasn't aware of that. I'm not much of a gamer, though, so that's probably why I wouldn't know that. But I thought it was still just Windows only. Yeah, Morality, DT, the longest thing to compile in my experience is GCC, yes. Yep, GCC always takes forever. Regardless of distro, like if I wanted to compile GCC here in Arch, yeah, it would take an hour, 2 hours, I don't know. Well, not on this machine. My old machine, it would take over an hour for sure. Yeah, Chris, appreciate the super chat. Yeah, we'll be listening while driving, but won't be able to chat. So I'll just say hello and get on the road. Yeah. And be careful while driving, Chris. Alright, we'll give the stream about 5 more minutes, then we'll shut it down, guys. And I know some of the folks in the chat were thinking of doing their own streams today. I know Tripcode has already left, but you guys want to go find his stream. Don't have a link to it. Tripcode, if you're still here, post a link to your channel. Or actually just post something in the chat. I'll make you a mod, and then you can post a link to the channel. Zeb, you got anything going on today? No, it's a Sunday here in the US. I don't know who all streams on Sundays usually. Now, some of the Linux YouTubers keep a regular schedule, some don't. I'm one of those people. I just stream whenever. I know Switch to Linux. He has a set schedule that works for him. Toss, Total OS Today, kind of keeps to a set schedule. Okay, yeah, and Tripcode's still here. I'm going to make you a moderator. That way you can post a link in the chat. Let's give everybody a link to your channel and let them know when you're going to start streaming. I'm sure some of the folks here would be interested. Yeah, Zeb, y'all did Destination Linux 131 today? Oh, okay. Was that the where you record it live, or has it already been edited and posted? How long does it usually take you guys when you guys do the recording, the live recording, to go back and get it edited and published on YouTube or wherever? There are a couple of days of time in between. I know it's a lot of work. I hate video editing, especially. Yeah, Peter, I'm used to DT, his streams lasting 2 hours. By the way, no time for taking into account. Well, taking into account, we ran into a problem with about 3 Thursdays ago, because I was having some work done on my house at the time, some roofing work, and I couldn't record 3 Thursdays ago. And then the next Thursday, I can't remember what happened, but there was a reason I couldn't. Might have been the hurricane. Was that 2 weeks ago, or was that 1 week ago? Anyway, we ran into a problem where for 2 or 3 Thursdays in a row, just recording anything live was going to be a problem. Either due to loud banging with hammers and nails on the roof right above me, or because of weather-related stuff. As far as would it have been a slow news week? No, I actually, matter of fact, that first Thursday where the roofers were, I had news stories lined up and I was wanting to record. It just wasn't going to work because of all the noise. We can always find news to talk about, though. You know. Yeah, DT, do you use Kdenlive? I've been playing around with it the last few days. Kdenlive is what I do for video editing, yeah. If you want to stick to free and open source software for video editing, Kdenlive is it. Kdenlive is where you want to be. There's nothing really comes close to Kdenlive as far as free and open source software. As far as video editors, I've used things like Pativi in the past and OpenShot and Shotcut. They're okay for basic stuff, but Kdenlive has so much more functionality than all those other ones that it's not even close. Now, if you don't mind using proprietary software, proprietary video editors, DaVinci Resolve kind of works on Linux, I've been told. But it doesn't work if you're an AMD user. I have an AMD video card, so... people tell me it's buggy as hell, but, you know, DaVinci Resolve, I guess, is an option. Lightworks is another proprietary video editor that does have a native Linux client, and from what I've been told on that is it works just fine. AMD, NVIDIA, whatever. Yeah, Peter, DT, what construction work had you been doing? I wasn't doing construction work. I had a bunch of people on my roof doing construction work. So the roof was damaged, needed new shingles and stuff. It was damaged in a storm some time back. And then they came out that week to redo the roof. And then the next week, of course, the hurricane. So I don't know if there's been damage to the roof since then, but kind of weird how that happens. Yeah, you should try Senalera. I haven't heard of that. I have a friend who uses it as a professional on Linux. Okay. Is it free and open source software, Serge? If not, I'll be sticking to Kdenlive. But if it's free and open source, I might try it. I try to stick with false solutions where they work. I mean, in some cases, you have to use proprietary software. Amandaville TV. DT, can you do a video about configuring SXHKD? I can, and I plan to do that. Because eventually I am going to switch to BSPWM and live in that, and for sure I will have to use the Simple X hotkey daemon for that, because that's how you set up key bindings in BSPWM. Although, again, I can do all those key bindings with SXHKD here in GNOME, and originally I did have SXHKD activated as a startup program in GNOME where it had all my key bindings here and I could do anything I want. All of this was controlled by SXKD. But eventually I went back and reconfigured all these key bindings, you know, the standard GNOME way, which was in the GNOME settings tool rather than using a third-party program. Because I didn't want to hack on GNOME in such a way that it was really almost nothing left of GNOME. I wanted to use some of the GNOME stuff. Because I know I cheated a little bit here, right? I know you guys really wanted to see me switch from Vim to gedit and switch from ST to the GNOME terminal and quit using dmenu and just use the GNOME dash. Yeah, thanks for the link there, Serge. I'll check it out. Let's see. Yeah, Senalera GG Infinity is a free and open source video editing software for Linux. It handles rendering, compositing, motion tracking, video editing, and much more. Just rolling release every month, and therefore the additional name Infinity. Okay. Yeah, let me bookmark that. I'll definitely check that out sometime. I appreciate that, Serge. All right, guys. Well, let me go ahead and get off of here. That way, it is a Sunday afternoon after all. I'm sure some of you guys have other places to be. I actually do have to go in to work for a little bit. I mentioned today was a day off for me, but I've got to go and work about 3 or 4 hours this evening, which is unfortunate. So instead of having 2 days off this week, looks like I'm going to work a 6-day work week this week. But it's fine. I get paid by the hour, so if I go over 40, they got to pay me time and a half. So getting a few extra hours in, I won't complain about it too much. If I was on salary, it would be obviously a different story. Yeah, DT, explain a little bit about ArcoBD to help choose the better one. So ArcoD is a bit more complicated of an install. It's a command line install. It pulls down the shell scripts from Arco's GitHub page. If you're going to go to the trouble of doing Arco Linux D, are you comfortable doing like a mainline Arch install? If you are, Arco Linux D is fine. If you want something a little bit more straightforward that uses a graphical installer like the Calamares installer, the Arco B is probably what you want to choose. All right. Yeah, have an awesome one, DT. I appreciate you guys. All right, thanks, Zeb. Yeah, and I saw that it takes about 4 hours to edit the video, or was that 4 days to edit the video, Zeb? I'm assuming 4 hours. All right, guys. Yeah. Thumbs up the stream, peeps. Nearly 300 watching, only 100 thumbs up. Yeah, thumbs up the stream. It does help. I don't know if it helps that much. Definitely commenting, you know, the community aspect of YouTube. That definitely seems to affect things. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Before I go, the show was made possible by Ansem, Chris, the other Chris, Dylan, George, Jack, Mitchell, Natek, Philip, Rob, Robert, Sam, Tony, and Willie. These guys, they're the producers of the show. Without them, you wouldn't know if GNOME is really as garbage as I initially thought. You wouldn't know it. Show is also brought to you by all those other fine ladies and gentlemen, all those names on the screen that help support me over on Patreon. I want to thank each and every one of those guys. I want to thank each and every one of these guys still hanging out in the chat. Again, still nearly 300 of you guys hanging out. So appreciate you guys. Thanks, Zeb, Steve, Serge, DViz, Spin Viking, Morality, Tennessee Frank, Hoyston. Thanks, guys. All right, let me get out of here. Peace.